Good morning. Oh, you guys, we can do so much better than that. Remember last year I threatened to make everyone do jumping jacks, so let's try that again. Good morning. Good morning. Wow, how about one more time? Good morning. Good morning. Okay, much better, guys. We're trying to get everything switched out on AV. So happy to be back this year, and there's some of you, some familiar faces, some new faces, so really happy to see everyone. Everyone having a good time so far? Can you tell I'm kind of killing time while they're changing AV? I'm super happy to be here, and we're going to get started in just a minute. If you want to grab coffee or anything, that would be a really good time to refill your cup. So anyway, this is my first time at the homestead, and I love it. Hans, you were right when you said they've done a big renovation. I was walking the property. If you guys haven't had a chance to actually walk their grounds, they're absolutely stunning, but most of you have probably been here before, so. All right, I'm going to get my notes open, and forgive me, I didn't want to wear my glasses, and I can't see that well, so I have my iPad with me this year. Last year, you guys remember I had note cards, and I was trying to flip through them really fast, so. Just waiting for my cue. Trying to keep energy up in the room, guys. It's not all doom and gloom, I promise. I will say from my point of view, I'm a residential lender, and I know there's some of you in the room. I've seen an uptick in borrowers who had sidelined themselves and are really off the fence back in the market buying. So contrary to what the data was saying, I can say that, and I'm in Northern Virginia and I do a little business in Richmond, I can say that my business has been very busy over the last couple of months. So I will say for me, it's not all doom and gloom, if that gives you guys any hope. One more minute. I'm getting the cube. One more minute. Man, I am not good with jokes on the fly, though. 2 thumbs up? Yeah.
We know it's cold out here. We're trying to get it done.
Okay, everyone hear Craig? He knows that everyone has icicles hanging out of their nose, so they're going to try to up the temp. Are we ready? Now we're talking high energy, guys. Okay. Good morning. I'm Maya. I'm thrilled to be back for a second year moderating this conversation. I must have done something right because Craig and Emily asked me back. This year, we're diving into real talk and real insights. Our industry is evolving fast, and today's panel is here to cut through the noise and bring you the truth, the trends, and what's coming next. So we're going to hear from the voices at the heart of today's conversation, the people who are actively shaping the future through their bold ideas, leadership, and action. We call them our movers for a reason. Let me introduce you to our incredible panel. Frank Ballif, founder and president of Southern Development Homes in Charlottesville, the man who can build you a house, sell you land, and then help you pick out a nice pasture for your cows. Excuse me. Frank's a Wahoo and is with a civil engineering degree, so he's essentially a walking blueprint for success. Don't let him fool you, he's an overachiever. He's got a Class A contractor's license and a real estate broker's license. Not only can he build you a house, but with his wife and daughters on his cattle farm, you might hear, got beef? And here's his fun fact. Once a male model for a calendar, because why settle for a date on the wall when you can be the highlight of the month? Let's give Frank a big round of applause. Dana Cowart, president of the Lester Group, lumber industry leader, real estate developer, and based on his resume, possibly a lumberjack in disguise. He's originally from Atlanta. Living proof you can start in the cold and still catch fire. Dana got his start in the lumber business at 17 and is a Husky with a degree in business finance. For us East Coasters, that's the University of Washington. Dana began his career in finance before realizing lumber was his true calling and going back to it in 2007. Numbers aren't so easy, are they, Dana? Since then, he's worn every hat, from sales to general management, and helped grow a company from 3 locations to 31. Whether that's a major career milestone or just an elaborate way to avoid staying home, we'll let his wife, Steph, and their 2 kids be the judge. But one title that Dana claims very proudly and loudly is being the 12th man. His fun fact, Dana's had more close encounters with wild animals than a National Geographic cameraman. Grizzlies, black bears, bald eagles, coyotes, and even a cheetah. And yet, he still braves panel discussions for HBAV. Thanks for being here with us humans today. Let's give Dana a big round of applause. Our next speaker, Spen Custis, Division President of Eastwood Homes for Richmond and Hampton Roads. He's the guy behind Eastwood's rise to a top 5 builder in Richmond, proving that home building isn't just about bricks and mortar, it's about building something great, and preferably on time and under budget. A Hampton, Sydney grad with a degree in managerial economics, Spen traded spreadsheets for site plans and never looked back. When he's not shaping the local market, he's cheering on the Orioles with his better half Lauren and their daughters Stella and Kate. Their son Henry isn't in the stands, but he's always a part of the team, their own guardian angel. Off the clock, Spen's usually chasing a better golf swing or a little peace and quiet on water. And Spen's fun fact, he's rocking a 16 handicap and a hole-in-one. That's like framing a house with a tape measure from the dollar store and still passing inspection, guys. Let's give Spen a big round of applause. And our last panelist today is Larry Murphy, President and CEO of Urban Development Corporation, a company that builds everything except excuses. Larry launched his Class A general contracting firm in 2004 as a side hustle, all while racking up 35 years in consumer product and manufacturing. Translation, he can build you a house and then Six Sigma the heck out of it thanks to his time served at DuPont and Philip Morris. Originally from Bridgeport, Connecticut, but not all Yankee, he was raised in Hampton, Virginia, played high school football, earned an electrical engineering degree from the University of Tennessee, and then topped it off with an MBA from the University of Richmond. He also sits on so many boards, we're not sure if he actually sits still. His fun fact, Larry's been to 47 states and every continent except Antarctica. He's basically one snow boot away from world domination. North Dakota, Montana, and Alaska, you're officially on notice. Let's give Larry a nice round of applause. I'm Maya Tran-Harter. I'm Senior Vice President of Construction Lending at Intercoastal Mortgage and founder of the Maya Group. While it carries my name, it's really the collective team effort of good humans who know how to get mortgages done. No drama, just results. I've been in the industry over 26 years through rate swings, housing chaos, and enough group text to last a lifetime. I'm known for getting deals closed, mentoring others, and keeping things moving. I'm a first-gen Vietnamese American, Buckeye wife, bonus mom, and proud board member for causes I care about. Today, I'm your moderator, either because I'm great at keeping everyone on track or because no one else wanted this mic. Let's see if I can keep everyone on schedule, politely cutting them off if they start sounding like a building code manual. My fun fact, I can't whistle. I've tried for years. So if you know any magic tricks, help a girl out. But until then, I'll keep making noise in my own way. Thanks, guys, for being here this morning. The mics you're wearing are for recording. Yeah. So we're all gonna have a seat.
Oh, man.
This is exciting. With this lineup, I'm really here right in the middle of greatness, so no pressure for me, right? Okay, so we all know the building industry has been navigating some real headwinds, from tightening regulations to those pesky mortgage interest rates. There's no doubt the building industry is facing some significant challenges. But while these hurdles are real, they also set the stage for innovation, adaptation, and leadership. Today's conversation is all about moving forward, how our panelists are not just coping with these pressures, but finding creative ways to thrive despite them. We're gonna roll up our sleeves and dive right into the challenges. The first step to beating them is knowing exactly what we're up against. Of course, we can't ignore tariffs, a hot button issue that's adding cost pressure and uncertainty across the supply chain. It's another layer our panelists are contending with as they navigate today's market. Dana, you're in the hot seat first, my friend. What keeps you up at night as it relates to tariffs?
Ooh, the scary T word everybody likes to talk about these days. Whether you think tariffs are a good thing, bad thing, I don't think is relevant for the conversation. For me, like what keeps me up at night, and you said the word uncertainty, right? I think our industry at large doesn't do well with uncertainty. Our consumers don't like uncertainty. We have a sales life cycle that can often be counted in terms of years, right? So being able to predict accurately forward what our cost structure is going to be, what the economic outlook is going to be, things of that nature, that's what's important to us. So I think, uncertainty is really, what some of the tariffs have created, right? And it's really just the implementation. Are they on? Are they off? Are they up? Are they down? Are the courts going to agree? Or are they not? All that just creates this cloud of uncertainty. So that's kind of what keeps me up at night. I think, Dan pointed out on a slide deck that, consumer confidence is pretty low, relatively speaking. I think it says lowest point since COVID, if I'm correct. And if that statistic's not right, I just made it up. So we're gonna run with it. But it's pretty close. Dan can fact check me. But and also builder confidence, right? You guys in this room, the NHB HMI, the Housing Market Index, is also at its lowest points, I think in like 30 months. And part of that contribution, I think, is just the uncertainty of the tariffs. So, that is what kind of keeps you up at night. In terms of real cost changes to our business model, it's really been interesting. On the supply side, which I represent that group on the stage here, it's been really sporadic in terms of what we see in terms of tangible cost changes, which has been really interesting to see because historically speaking, any excuse any manufacturer or supplier needs to raise prices, they jump on it, even if it's real or not. This one, it's been interesting how many suppliers have been reticent to raise prices as a result of tariffs. It's really been hesitant. So they're out there, you guys are experiencing them, but it's kind of hit and miss, not across the board, at least to date, which has been interesting to me.
Does anyone have anything else you want to add to tariffs? No. Okay. So what are your clients or teams identifying as current challenges? And Frank, we'll start with you.
The regulatory process in general, I don't know if this is on, but
It's on.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
In general, and it's been a long theme, and I know something that we as an organization, HBAV, spend a lot of time working on, but kind of like three anecdotal stories. One is about a rezoning. And I've shared this story before, but I think it's one that's worth hearing again. In Albemarle County, we worked on a project that was designated in the comprehensive plan for residential development in a rather significant way. And we submitted an application that would have had about 300-ish homes, mix of product types, some townhomes, some smaller singles, some larger singles. And 12 years later, we got 80 homes approved.
Wow.
12 years later, which is insane. And that alone obviously restricts supply, makes our mid-Atlantic look better on the chart, but it comes at a real cost to society. Another story from the city of Charlottesville that is not on a political approval. We had a rezoning that we submitted to the city, actually made it through the city rezoning process pretty easily. And then spent 4 years fighting with staff over the by right nature of the rest of the approval process. And so when that project, which is now, we're building homes there now, but it's in a completely different market at a completely different time. And my third, post-COVID building permits just took forever, and it has taken a long time to get that under control, which just adds more uncertainty to the mix. So that is always what keeps me up at night, and always why I'm very thankful for HBAV and all of our legislative advocacy, because that is really where the change happens.
That's a plug for Build Pack. If you haven't donated yet, make sure you do, okay?
Bring your hundo dollar bills tonight.
That's it. All right. Spen, what about you?
Well, other than Mine's not on, is it?
There you go.
Other than making sure my 4-year-old and 3-year-old behaved this morning while they're in here. A similar story is not having enough zone lots. Give you a snapshot, at least for Richmond. Our HBAR president, Chad Joyce, has done a very good job of explaining this and getting that message out there. You know, we only had 1,871 lots rezoned in the Richmond MSA last year. However, we pulled 4,928 permits. That is a huge discrepancy, and it's not like that just happened. This has been happening for years, and it's going to continue to happen. Already in 2025 first quarter, it was 966 lots getting rezoned. However, 1,211 permits were issued. So there's a lot of demand there, and as an industry, we have to figure out ways to overcome that. How do we influence the leaders, the Board of Supervisor members, the planning commissioners, who are making these decisions who impact so many folks? And kudos to Dana, what she has done by hiring an actual campaign manager, Lorenzo Williams. We're really excited about that for Richmond. His job is to go out and partner with our trade partners, our suppliers, our builders, find out and get a database of those constituents who will show up to these meetings. Because when I say the meetings, the rezoning hearings, all these Board of Supervisor members ever hear are, we don't want new construction, we don't want development. Well, you know what? We need people who do show up and say, we need development. I run a business. I need to put food on the table for my employees. And that is a huge benefit to our market to have someone who can do that for us. But the next step to that, though, too, is once you get a lot rezoned, what is the cost of that lot? What are the challenges once you get it rezoned? You're basically committing your third child to the county for all the things they want just to rezone it. And I'll give kudos to HBAV. I'm plugging a lot of the associations right now, so this is a good thing. Andrew and Craig have done an incredible job of working with the DEQ to set up a wetlands mitigation bank. Now, we're hoping it comes on soon, but what that's going to offer is when there's not a wetland credit available, because there's a huge lack of credits available in Virginia to be able to get a lot that now is rezoned to be buildable. So what Craig and Andrew have done is said, hey, we've got this set up with the DEQ. We'll now be able to buy credits through a state agency. And that is an incredible advancement that we need, and continue to donate to BuildPAC so that we can help influence the elections, so we get some folks that are like-minded to us in office.
Great. I love that you're plugging all the HBAs too, so that's awesome.
More money.
And Larry, what about you?
Well, first of all, just happy to be here, so thank you for the invitation. I echo a lot of what's already been said. My focus with urban development is a little different. We're focused on the urban environment, and so infill construction is critical for us as we focus to try to build some of these inner cities. Richmond and Petersburg are our focus right now, so we're really not into building lots. There are plenty of lots available. There's some blighted homes that need to be taken down, and then reutilization of that infrastructure in order to build new structures. The other thing that goes hand in hand with that is home ownership. There's a tremendous gap in household wealth. And that gap is primarily driven by the fact that some folks own homes, or they have had generational wealth created through real estate, and some folks don't. And so one way to change that, and also to deal with the blighted issues within the inner cities, is to deal with home ownership. And so I know we're going to probably be talking about affordability, and that changes from region to region. But one of our focuses at urban development is home ownership. We're not talking about leasing. We're not talking about other types of ownership. We're talking about pure single-family home ownership. And so if we can rectify some of that, I think some of the other issues that we face as a community will also be rectified. So that's my big thing.
Thanks, guys. Now that we know what's actually keeping everyone up at night, there's no shortage of pressure points out there. But let's flip the script and let's focus on what is working. Real progress, smart solutions, and wins that are driving our industry forward. what's the one unexpected thing that's actually working right now? And any strategies making a big impact? And Dana, we'll start with you.
I don't know how innovative or inventive or different this is, but for us, as we've seen over the last, certainly 18 months, a little bit of a slowdown of activity, right? Call it what you want, but there's kind of this tangible retraction or at least pausing in terms of construction activity or growth of construction activity, right? So the pie is shrinking a little bit, not a ton, but we've seen it certainly on the supply side. So for us, it's really just with our team putting a huge emphasis on, hey, I don't want customers, I don't want suppliers, I want partners, right? How do we look beyond our business as a transactional model and look at it as building partnerships, right? And so getting to know the customers, figure out what your pain points are, and how can we invest in your success, and hopefully there's some reciprocity there, but just putting the emphasis on the partnership aspect of our business versus thinking in terms of just customers and suppliers and this transactional nature. So, like I said, it's not revolutionary by any means, but I think it's been very impactful for us in terms of building this sustainable long-term business model.
Awesome, thanks. Spen, I really love your answer to this, so why don't you share it with everyone else?
Well, in home building, we always think about providing homes, building a place for someone to live in. And there's a lot of things that we can do as a home builder to make houses more attainable, things that we can do to improve the lives of customers. But one thing that we need to focus on and get back to focusing on, especially in challenging markets, is investing in our team. Investing them with training, especially when the market's down a little bit. Just don't forget about them. They are your front line. They're the folks who are engaging with your customers. And by providing a great experience for your employees and for your team members, they in turn will do that for the actual customer. For our home builders, it's making sure our sites look incredible every day. And if they know that they're invested in, then they're going to invest in those sites. And let's remember, customers equate cleanliness with quality. And if you come up to a job site and it looks really good, the customers are going to think, wow, this is an incredible builder. So that's a big focus for us. But taking that another step further is the interaction with our customers. So we utilize different applications, different apps for our customers that involve just constant communication. And in turn, they become our brand ambassador because they are so quick to take that picture that they got in front of their home or their home site, that walkthrough they just did with the builder. And our salespeople do an incredible job of capturing those moments. And then our customers, in turn, they post it on Facebook, X, Instagram, and they're saying, Eastwood is our builder. They are built with care, and they have showed that. So if it just gets back to realizing and recognizing that we work with people and appreciating them and being grateful for those interactions, then it goes a long way.
Yeah, the power of social media is big, right? The
Shockingly.
brand awareness,
Yes,
that
shockingly.
it gives you is amazing. Larry, I loved your answer too, and this is really outside the box, guys. So Larry, please share yours.
It's a little different take, especially being a smaller builder, developer, and that's the concept of paying yourself first. I've spent years in corporate America at DuPont, Philip Morris, always had a big team, a lot of support. When I went out on my own in 2004, while I was also working at some of these other corporations, it was really a different paradigm in which if you're not careful, especially as you're moving from, just driving the pickup truck and having the drywall on and getting this done and getting that done, you have to really be careful to pay yourself first. And so that's critical as you're transitioning, from a big corporation or even just getting your business started. Make sure you have enough margin built into your estimates, built into your projections, your pro formas, to pay yourself first. Because what will happen, and I found this first 2 or 3 years, is that you'll get everybody else satisfied. And then you really won't have anything to show for your effort. And so for the first 5, 10 years, it was very, very frustrating. you're doing all these projects, you're making these things happen, you look at your bottom line and it's like, wow, it's great from a tax perspective and I need that. But it's not really a good take home when, I have a wife and she's saying, well, how much did you make on this project? And I said, well, we did okay, we got it done. But at the end of the day, you really have to look at paying yourself first, making sure you have enough overhead and margin built into your estimates. And it really will pay dividends. You'll also feel better about what you're doing. As again, got some really big players in here, talking mainly to the smaller folks. And you will get things done a lot more efficiently.
Great, thanks Larry for sharing that. So sometimes the best strategies really come from unexpected places, is what I just learned. But let's really turn up the heat and let's dive into hot takes and bold moves. This is where we're going to talk about industry disruption, challenge the status quo, and explore the big picture thinking that's reshaping the future. So we'll start with, what's one unpopular opinion you hold in the industry today? Larry, we'll just kick it right back to you.
Yeah, one thing I can do is talk, so cut me off if I get too long-winded. But at the end of the day, we really have to focus on the future as far as the workforce is concerned, as far as, what the makeup of our organizations look like. And to be honest, we need more. I know diversity is not a good term. It means different things to different people. But there's a whole market that I think we as an organization, be it the home builders organization, that we're somewhat overlooking. And that's a lot of the minorities and a lot of the underrepresented market. There's a whole market out there that a lot of retailers have discovered. You can look at anything from cosmetics. You can look at anything from, the way a particular model looks or the way in which films are being developed. And so there's a big opportunity that, because the U.S. is changing. Regardless of what you hear about, some of the other programs that are being dismantled, and that's fine. We've been through rougher times than this, and we'll survive this also. But at the end of the day, it's about money. And so there are segments of the population that are not being addressed. And I think it's because people are not familiar. People are not used to working with different segments of the population. We are an immigrant society. Either you came here or you were brought here. But at the end of the day, if you're not an American Indian, and there are plenty of them who are here, you were either brought here or you came here. And we have to recognize that and try to address that. So there's missed opportunities, I think, across the board. Be it, I'm glad, let me just digress a minute, I'm glad that women are starting to be recognized within our industry. They've really benefited a lot from a lot of the programs, if you will, that have been implemented, be it affirmative action or DEI or whatever you want to call it. Women have really benefited from it. And we even have a segment here this afternoon, I think, about women in construction. And so the traditional paradigms don't work anymore. They don't work as effectively. So, yeah, I'm glad everybody came, everybody's made a living, everybody has their story. But there's segments of the population that we could really benefit from if we address those segments. People are people. And as I said earlier, I've been all over the world. I've been, every continent except one. Not a whole lot of people at the one I need to go to. My wife, she doesn't like cold weather, so she hasn't been there yet. But I plan to go. I also plan to go out of space whenever it becomes more affordable. But that's just me. But I think if you really think about who's around the table, who's here at this convention, at this meeting, we're really missing out on a segment of society or segments of society who have money. And they have spendable money. And so the more we address that, I think we'll be better.
Thanks, Larry. I agree. And I know that there are some builders I do business with, and they've really wrapped their head around multi-family and multi-generational living, which is very prevalent in ethnic cultures. And so they're designing homes a little differently, some of them. So I appreciate you bringing that up. So, Dana, what is one unpopular opinion you hold?
I hold lots of them, probably, but one that I've sort of just been focused on for most of my career in this industry is we don't adapt to change very well. And that can come in all forms, but it's just, I always joke like we're like always 30 years behind the times with everything, and we hold it as this badge of honor that we're the snowball industry, that like we like to do things the same way we did it 100 years ago, and pound a nail and a hammer, and that's great. I love that about our industry, but we just don't adopt to change very well. I mean, you can ask the Tyvek and Barricade folks in this room, like they made their product in the mid 80s, and it took us like 20 years to decide it was a good idea to actually use it and not wrap our house in like 30-pound felt or whatever, tissue paper we were using for a while, right? So just change, for whatever reason, it's kind of bred in our DNA. We don't like change. And you can take that in the form of technology, right? If you use, as just an offshoot of that change. I always joke that like, the last technological revolution in our industry was we decided to put forklifts on the back of our delivery trucks. We're like, yay! And then we thought we were really fancy because 5 years ago we were like, hey, we could put GPS telematics on our trucks. Well, UPS was doing that like 25 years ago. So like, so the things we tout as new and innovative in our industry typically are 20 years behind the times. And what's been interesting from my perspective is that's been accepted, right? Even by our customer base, it's just the way it is, and regardless of what's going on, that's sort of been accepted. But what's been really interesting is in the last, 5-6 years, I think there's been a paradigm shift where our customers are demanding of us more innovation, more change, more technology adoption. And I will give our industry at large credit, both up and down the entire vertical, on, I think we've woken up, right? I've seen far more adoption of new ideas, new technology, new ways of thinking in the last half dozen years than I think we've probably done in the last 60 years. And that's a good thing, I think, in many ways. And I'm always fascinated by hearing who's doing what, who's changing. Customers are out. How many of you guys have customers who've been asking you for like, hey, I'd like a 3D model rendering of my house. I want an augmented reality walkthrough of it before you build it. Right, that wasn't a thing 6 years ago, or if it was really cutting edge, but now it's kind of a common course, right? And Spen pointed out mobile apps, right? There's mobile apps out there where someone can pick through a Therma-Tru app of the door they want, hold it up in front of the house that they've got, and it'll like virtually impose the door over the house. Or color, paint chip apps where you can hold it up against the wall and you can like take a picture of your room that already exists and change the color at whim until you find the one you want. Great. So, those are the things that I think are going to help drive our industry forward, which is a good thing. And I'm excited as a card-carrying millennial who leans into technology. I love the fact that we're finally starting to evolve with the times. So.
Great. And then Spen, how about you?
So for us home builders, when we look at land, we always say location, location, location. What is going to be the most desirable piece of land? Well, I'll hark back to a conversation I had. At one point, I was actually thinking about going into basketball coaching for a career. I'm glad I didn't. This is a lot more fun. But I had a conversation with the old UNC basketball coach, Matt Doherty, and he said when he recruits a player, he's always looking, what's that one fault that some other coach doesn't see but he sees that he thinks he can correct? And so I took that same philosophy and brought it over to looking for land. What piece of land can I find that has a fault? And what I'm finding, and I hope I'm still on the precipice of this, is it's rural land. Dan hit on it just a little bit ago, so I'm not trying to plagiarize Dan, but you have good foresight. I like that. But we're looking at lots that don't have water and sewer. They're by right, and we don't have to deal with all the mess I just talked about earlier about getting rezoned lots. And with the advent of being able to work from home, the advent of Starlink, I will give kudos to Elon Musk for that. That has been a big help for our rural areas, is finding inexpensive lots and bringing the homeowners to those lots. You usually have the opportunity, and there's not too many Richmond builders in here, so hopefully I'm not telling my competition exactly where we're going. But,
Hans, cover your ears.
Yeah, earmuffin Hans. So anyway, if you build it, they will come. We're recognizing that. People have opportunity for more space, more legroom. And I feel like we're being a little bit of a trailblazer here, and that has been a thought of our industry. Is like, you don't do that. You stay within water and sewer districts. You want to stay by your services. Well, be damned with that. Let's try something different and see if it works.
No, don't change.
Yeah, don't change what we're doing.
Not for 20 years.
Well, now we're going to talk about the power plays in the building industry. Mergers, acquisitions, and the rise of industry giants. We're seeing companies join forces not just to survive, but to dominate, streamline operations, and expand their footprint fast. Two of our panelists have been at the center of bold moves that are reshaping the competitive landscape. So let's dig in to what's behind those decisions and what it really takes to make them work. Congratulations to Frank and Southern Development. Announced last month, Southern Development joined the Keystone Custom Homes team, a partnership between two private operators that propels a mission-focused strategy grounded in trust, local resilience, and global influence. So Frank, can you share what led to making this bold move?
Certainly. So I want to start from the personal side first. I became acquainted with Keystone Custom Homes and Jeff Root, their founder, through Homes for Hope. And I know a lot of you here have heard of Homes for Hope and are a little bit familiar with it. But Homes for Hope helps raise funds for Hope International. And Hope International makes microloans to entrepreneurs living in poverty all over the world. So Jeff started Keystone Custom Homes, I think, in 1993, and Hope/Homes for Hope in 1997. And today they're in 29 countries, have made over $1.8 billion worth of microloans, so average probably less than $200 US, and have helped put 300 million families and supported them in creating small businesses, which is really cool. So in 2019, we built a Homes for Hope, and that one home raised $206,000, which Hope estimated to be enough to serve 10,000 families a year with microloans. Of course, the loans are paid back and recycled, but I was really taken by Hope's effectiveness and by their mission. Ended up joining their board, Homes for Hope board, I think somewhere around 2021. But through that, got to know Jeff and Keystone and Hope really well. I'm pretty excited by all that they do. One other tidbit is that Keystone Custom Homes is 90% owned for the benefit of charity, which is overwhelmingly all to Hope International. So that relationship's been there for a long time. They're a private builder based out of Pennsylvania, but also building in Maryland and now the Carolinas. And from the business side, we build around 100 homes a year, and we've always developed more lots than we build. In fact, we sell to a lot of folks in this room, develop lots. And the world's changing. Being a 100-unit builder, smaller, private builder in today's world, it looks very different. And also being a developer and looking at well, I should say one of our strengths over the years has been finding land, rezoning land, often in A-plus locations, difficult projects, difficult land sellers, complicated deals, and we've put together an outsized lot pipeline. So for our 100 homes a year, Charlie's sitting over there, he'll know the number better than I, but I think we have a lot pipeline well over 2,000 lots. So, but kind of looking at, hey, what does the next 5 years look like? And jumping on Dana's train, change is happening fast in certain aspects of the world. Looking that's going to be harder and harder to carve out that space. So looking to partner and join forces with a larger private builder was very attractive. Better systems, better buying, much more capital, and the ability to compete for larger tracts of land. So those two things together came together, and we're really excited.
That's really awesome. So it started with philanthropy. the whole thing started because you were involved in this nonprofit, right?
Yeah, that's where the connection came from.
Okay, so that's
Yeah.
really interesting. That's where it
And
started from.
For years, I've been a Homes for Hope and Hope International model with my NIL deal and my gear. So now it's just a little more official, and I get more shirts.
So for those who don't know you in the room, what market are you in?
Charlottesville.
So you're in Charlottesville, and you chose a builder to partner with who's out of state. They don't build in Virginia, right?
Right, and they do not. They did not prior, and so our partnership is for the state of Virginia. So
Okay, so that's the win for them too. So
Yeah.
that's great. Wonderful. Thank you for sharing. Congratulations again.
thank you.
And then we're going to say congratulations to Eastwood Homes on the recent acquisition of Napolitano Homes. I have been corrected many times. Napolitano Homes, an exciting move for Eastwood into the Hampton Roads and coastal Virginia markets. So Spen, what drove that decision, and how does that acquisition fit into the broader growth strategy?
Sure. So obviously, it's never an easy decision when you're trying to bring two companies together who have been in business for so long. We were both founded in 1977. And Eastwood, we had already begun growing our market into Hampton Roads. But Vince Napolitano and Clark Stewart, my owner, are in the same Builder 20 group. And Vince recognized the shift in what was occurring in the home building market. We've seen a lot of influx from national builders. Lennar, Horton, Ryan has been well established in Hampton Roads. And Vince also noticed that it was going to continue to be a challenge to grow his brand because of the folks who are coming in who are willing just to pay more for land, develop it themselves with very little margin. So Vince approached Clark one day and said, I love my company. I love the folks who work for me. Our culture's aligned. And that's the same strategy that Clark has had that he learned from his father, Joe. That if the culture's aligned, then it's always going to be a good fit. So it was a courtship. It was about a year courtship to figure out what's going to happen, how's this going to play out. But we also recognized their team, they had people on their team 30 years with Napolitano. That says a lot. Now, they could have sold to a national builder for more money because they had about 600 lots under control. But Vince made a strategic decision to say, no, this is our home, this is our family. We want them to go work for a company who has same morals, same ethics, and same character. So it was a great courtship and ultimately worked out to be where we're working together now, and could not be more seamless. Our teams work extremely well together, and we're so excited about what we're going to be able to accomplish in the Hampton Roads market moving forward.
Is that the overall growth strategy for Eastwood, is maybe to look for more to private builders to acquire, to expand the footprint?
Not in Virginia.
Okay.
We feel confident with what we've already accomplished that the organic growth will be there.
Yeah.
But it's not to say we want to do it in other markets.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Congratulations again.
Thank you very much.
Awesome. Dana, from your perspective as a supplier, how are the recent waves of mergers and acquisitions in the building industry affecting your relationships, the supply chain, and your overall business strategy?
I could probably talk for hours on this whole topic. Being on the supplier side, lumberyard side, I have maybe a little different perspective, but to me it's a little bit of a double-edged sword, right? This industry consolidation, right? And I can't speak so much to the consolidation on the builder side, what you guys are going through, but I would venture a guess, a lot of the motives and the reasons why are not dissimilar from the supplier side, right? A lot of times, the benefit, it can be a good thing, right? A lot of times you go into it with the idea that the whole is going to be greater than the sum of the parts, right? There's some synergy that can happen through joining different business units. Also, certainly on the supplier side, there's just been this big wave, and a lot of it has to do with you have a ownership generation of baby boomers or what have you that just don't have great succession options, right? From the kids want to go off and do something else, or they don't want to turn over the businesses, and so the M&A activity out there can provide continuity of the business, right? Continuity of the service in the markets and the businesses you guys are used to dealing with. Right, if that business can stay in place and keep working, but just under new ownership, that's a good thing. And also, as you guys have pointed out, right, a big primary motivator can be just access to more resources to help us change invest capital, capital expenditures, invest in our business, technology, and also just a shared expertise of multiple business units. So those are good things about it. But sometimes there can be some downside. And a former company I worked for, we grew from 3 locations to 31 in 5-year span. We made 14 acquisitions across that path. So I've seen the good and the bad, on an internal perspective. And if there's any BFS or USLBM guys in the room, you can close your ears. But there can be some downsides to the consolidation, right? Oftentimes you're joining big business, right? And big business can change the rules of engagement, right? Maybe that the new business model is not as flexible in terms of solutions they can provide you. They're not as nimble. Sometimes they might cut services or personnel in an attempt to gain efficiencies out of whatever the new M&A model looks like, right? If you got 2 different managers and all of a sudden you're the same company and maybe you only need 1 manager, right? So some of that stuff can happen and not always to good effect. And so there is some downside to it, and especially if you look at the supply side. And there's been a ton. I went to Craig Webb's website. If you guys aren't familiar with him, on the supplier side, he's kind of our storyteller, truthsayer, and historian for the industry. He's got a website called Web Analytics that's got a ton of great information on the industry, and he tracks M&A activity across on the lumberyard builder supplier side. And last year there were 150 deals that consolidated 350 physical locations just in 2024. And that was actually the slowest year we've had in a while. If you look at a 5-year span, it is in excess of 750 individual deals that have transacted that have affected 2,800 individual locations across the country. So there's a lot of consolidation happening out there. I don't know if I can opine on whether it's good or bad or whatever, because there are pros and cons to both sides of it. And once again, I can't necessarily speak to the builder side, but it is out there. It's a fact of life, and we just need to be able to adapt to that change in the ecosystem. On a personal level, I'm a bit of a romantic when it comes to our industry, especially on the lumberyard side. There are so many great companies across the industry that are these 100-year-old family-owned lumber yards that have these rich histories and these small communities spread across the entire country, and like I said, I'm a bit of a romantic about that. I love hearing those stories. I love, hearing about how the growth of our country is synonymous with these small businesses across the country. So the M&A side of it, tends to have a net effect of kind of washing those histories away, right? So like I said, on a personal level, it makes me a little sad in those terms, but, it is what it is, I suppose, so.
Well, it's interesting. Craig and I were having a conversation that, the M&A activity is in every industry. So to see it really kind of starting to really infiltrate inside the building industry is interesting. And, it'll be interesting what the future looks like as far as that's concerned.
Well, Maya, you'll also see, even in Richmond, we've had 2 local builders. Instead of selling their company to outside other builders, Main Street Homes and Lifestyle, they actually went employee-owned, so to continue that legacy. So there's other avenues that builders are taking besides M&A.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
Yeah.
Okay. See, aren't you glad you guys came today? We learned something new today. Lots of new things today. All right, guys, do you hear all that buzzing? Because those are buzzwords that we're about to start talking about. So we're going to talk about buzzwords, trends, and game changers. We're going to start with modular building is efficient, stick building is flexible, and I want to talk about where it's all going. So, Larry, we'll start with you. What are pros and cons of modular versus stick building?
Yeah, I think one of the things is that change is difficult. Okay, and it is, and it's at a conference I was on other organizations. So on a personal level, let me just give you this exercise to demonstrate why change is hard. Typically, you put a shirt on or a coat on in a certain way. So tomorrow, even tonight, I want you to try to do it the opposite way. So I'm right-handed. I always put my right hand first when I put on the coat. Try to put your left hand in first, just as a personal exercise. Just do that. And you'll see that change is not easy, and it'll be a little foreign to you. So I know that's way off the beaten path, but let me get back to the question. I'm on the Builder Systems Council for this part of NABA. And so I think it's a change that's inevitably going to come. It needs to come. Some of the benefits of modular construction will definitely be efficiency. There'll definitely be energy optimization. There'll be less waste. And we all have labor issues. And so if you can manufacture the biggest expense that most people make within a controlled environment, not out in the elements, you typically will get a better product. So, I've been to more than 10 modular manufacturing factories, across the country. Most of the world, they construct their housing in manufactured, controlled environments, in systems built or in factories, and then they transport it to the location, and then they get erected. That's how most of the world does it. Japan, Switzerland, whatever. And so I think it's inevitable and a change that's going to come, but it's going to take time to do that. There are a couple of things on the negative side. One is the perception that we're talking about trailers, we're talking about things that are not as that built as efficiently or as well as the carpenter out in the field, trying to erect trusses or whatever from a stick built perspective. And so that change, I think, will inevitably or eventually be overcome. And I predict, maybe not in my lifetime, most of the housing manufacturing will move more and more toward modular manufacturing because of the things that I talked about. Labor is not getting any better in that situation. Most of the folks that I have on my crews are 40 years or older. We have very few master carpenters now. Most of our roofs lines are manufactured in a factory by truss. And so the panelized industry is moving on. All that's part of a modular model. And so that's my take on it. I think it's going to become something that we all probably will adopt to in pretty near future.
Spen?
Larry said a lot of the things I completely agree with. They're very, very true. The one challenge we will have with modular in the future are the restrictions by the localities. When you do get a lot rezoned, I will make sure they will guaranteed say no chance for that. So the modular has to go into one of the rural areas, agricultural land, things like that. But it also gets down to that field adaptability versus eliminating versus the eliminating of the environmental challenges and that streamlined process. Even working at a large national, we would do panelization, and inevitably panels would come out, and we still have to adapt those panels because they just did not quite work right. Now, with the advent of AI and some of the more streamlined processes that are coming, absolutely, I think those things are going to happen. But to your point too, you could pull up Amazon right now and order a house, and it could be delivered to you. And that's crazy to think. I didn't believe it until I actually Googled it and said, "Oh my gosh, you can do that." But over the course of time, I think you'll see with the wealthier individuals, which we are still one of the wealthiest countries in the world, they're going to want to have that creativity. But there is a place for that buyer profile who needs shelter, and that's why I will still believe to say that in the future there's going to be a place for both and high demand for both ways.
Yeah, I think pretty soon we'll be adding 3D printing homes to this conversation.
Yes, that's actually
sure.
another point coming up.
Dana, what about components versus stick building? I mean, what do you have to add here?
Yeah, I'm actually fascinated by this whole topic because I've always held the viewpoint, maybe it's still an unpopular opinion, that our industry is extremely wasteful. Like if you think about the whole process of like home construction or commercial construction, whatever, it's a really wasteful process. There's so much time waste, There's so much material waste. I mean, how many of you guys pull up a 50-yard dumpster outside of your, house construction project, right? And you can almost build a whole new house with the amount of like cut waste we have from the construction process. And so this whole concept of like modular building, or even just look at any kind of prefabricated attempt to build the end result, right? On paper, it sounds good, but what's interesting is an industry and I think really has to do with consumer expectations. They want all the flexibility to build like their 3,000 square foot house. Let's cut up and this and that. And you got angled walls and cool stuff and a coffee nook and whatever. Like the customization that has become the norm of expectation runs in conflict with prefabrication, which wants to be more of a controlled environment with less variables. And as a side note, if you guys want to read about a great case study of this whole thing, go Google Katerra, Katerra. If you're not familiar with that company, go read about it. It is a fascinating story of a company who was hell-bent on revolutionizing our industry by making custom home plans in a fabricated manufacturing environment. They started down in Arizona, had plans to rule the world, and guess what? They're bankrupt now. Go read about them. It's fascinating. But for all the reasons you guys talked about, there's just there's a lot of resistance to modular construction, especially when you talk about single-family residence. It's more adopted on the commercial side. But I think there's, we look at there's an in-between that can help us, bridge the gap of efficiencies and waste in the construction process, but it isn't full modular construction, which lends more towards prefabricated components of the house, right? So we look at things like roof trusses, floor trusses, wall panels, as you just pointed out, and sometimes they don't line up, but we're working on that. And so I think. And we see more and more demands being asked of us on the supply side to find more opportunities to provide solutions that are value-add solutions that sort of bridge this gap of like old school stick framing, where it's the Wild West, versus full, manufactured environment, prefabricated modular type structure. So we see the sweet spot as components in today's construction cycle. So that's, I think, a way to find the happy medium between the benefits, but not, avoid some of the cons. So.
Yeah, I had the opportunity of taking my first tour through a manufacturing plant. It was with Van Meter Homes. And if you guys haven't done it in the audience, you should tour a manufacturing plant. It's insane how little waste there actually is when it's all said and done. And I learned a lot on that particular tour myself. So I would strongly encourage you to do it. Dana, you're building a facility, right? Somewhere close by.
Yeah, we're currently putting our money where our mouth is and building a new truss plant and wall panel plant up in the Fredericksburg market.
Yeah.
So.
Or if anyone in here, if you know of any other plant, do it, because it's really, really incredible what you're able to see there. So we all know that we have an inventory challenge, and density is another buzzword that we keep hearing about. And Larry, since you specifically are building in urban and dealing with urban infill, can you share with us how you're solving for density in Petersburg?
Yeah, we've recently kind of moved from Richmond, some of the inner city sections of Richmond, down to Petersburg. Petersburg is one of the oldest cities in Virginia. It has one of the largest stocks of historic houses. The housing stock is unbelievable. But obviously when the economic engine left Petersburg, it went to more of a rental environment. Housing stock, the condition of it went down, and so have a lot of blighted properties there. And so one of the ways in which the city is trying to address this is through zoning. And so the zoning requirements have now changed so that you can get a lot more packed into the same size lot. So I saw some of the data from Zonda, in which, in the past, you'd have single family and what we used to call suburban sprawl. As the inner cities are starting to be rebuilt, the whole key is density. And so if you can get more tax dollars for the same square foot or the same acreage, then that's a positive, that's a benefit. And so in order to keep up with that, the zoning has had to change. And so some of the lot requirements for multifamily housing has changed. A lot of the projects that were mentioned are multifamily, be it townhouses, condominiums, even with the way in which houses are listed now, you have a drivability or walkability index in Redfin and some of the others. That's also going to lend itself to, as we age in place. My daughter lives in Leesburg. She lives in a community that you can walk to a grocery store, you can walk to a Chick-fil-A, you can walk to a Starbucks. Most people are good with that. But not only that, you can also walk to some of the better restaurants in Northern Virginia, walkable distances. And so that's all about density. Now, there's some pros and cons of increasing density. One, I think we went through this with COVID. And so, infections and things like that, because you have more people in a shorter or smaller space. Within the inner city, crime per se. It's not, depending on who the people are. It's the fact that you have people who are closely packed into the same area. So there are pros and cons of increasing density. But I really project that instead of, I hear Spen, going to more rural areas, as people get older, I know I don't like driving as much as I used to. I'm one of the older people in here. And so if I can walk to a facility, if I can age in place, so I don't have to drive, 10 minutes to go get, some milk. And that's really what's going on now. That's going to become more and more likable. And so density is going to be a key term, I think, that we're going to hear more and more about. And so the pros and cons of it, I think there's some big pros right now as we're trying to get more dollars out of every acre within a city or a locality.
Thanks, Larry, for sharing that. Spen, I'm very excited about this because you brought this up and I have this conversation multiple times a day, every single day. And so we're going to talk about the difference between attainable and affordable. So, Spen, take it away.
There is a difference. I think for us in new construction, we need to forget the word affordable. It just doesn't exist. Affordable needs to be a term that is related just to used resale homes. What frustrates me and frustrates a lot of center industry is when we go to planning commission or planning staff and say, hey, we really would like this site to have some affordable product in it. Well, outside of using someone like a, was it Maggie Walker Land Trust or anything like that, it's very, very challenging for us to do it. But at the same time, when they say we want affordable housing in this area, okay, great. Well, tell us what you like. All right, well, we want a 2,400 square foot home, 30% masonry on the front. A landscape package is worth about $4,000. 30-year roof shingles, hardy plank siding, and it goes on and on and on. And I'm like, well, on this side you said you wanted affordable, but now you just raised the price of the house about 40 grand on top of all the planning regulations that just raised the house $90,000. So how is it possible for even say affordable right now? So the reason I like to say attainable is because there's things that we can do as a home builder to at least try to get some product that will potentially work for the masses. And that is, all right, in a market like right now, it's doing rate buy downs, maybe include less features. Try to rezone lots back to the density. We have a site with 35-foot wide lots. Say, look, to the planning staff, all right, you want something more affordable? Well, we'll get you something more attainable, but we're going to need a zoning variance to allow for a 35-foot wide lot so we can put a 24-foot wide home on it. Yeah. But please don't then tell me I need a metal roof on my front porch. So it's those sorts of things that we need to instill in planning staff when they say, hey, we want an affordable product here, just stop them right there and say, this conversation is going to end unless you're okay changing all your architectural proffers. And that goes for us as developers and builders. When we submit a package that's going to go in front of planning staff, and they say, all right, before we even look at it, here are all these architectural proffers you need to abide by. No, we're not going to do that. We're going to go straight to the board of supervisor member and say, This is something we are not going to do. And if you're not going to support this, then we'll make sure the media is behind it, or Lorenzo Williams, our new campaign manager, is going to be bringing a lot of folks out to say why this needs to be this way.
Yeah, I've seen that happen in multiple jurisdictions where they'll say use the word affordable housing, and then some colleagues I used to work with, they always ask, what does that mean to you?
That's right.
What is your target? Is it 300,000, 250,000? Whatever it is, it's all relative, right? The term affordable is
They're
relative,
all
right?
relative.
But give me a number. What's the target number? And then I'll tell you what we can build for that. It might be a doghouse, or it might be, we might be able to come up with something that's attainable, but it's got to start with like, you tell me what's the bogey we're trying to hit, and then we need to find a solutions that what would it take to make that happen. And I just feel like we kind of get lost in the swirl of that conversation. Like it just doesn't really go anywhere, or at least with any real tangible, meaningful output in a lot of cases. There's actually lots of jurisdictions across the country that are tackling this with actual like real conversation with some real results, but it takes work on all sides. You got to bring all the parties together in terms of the government jurisdictions, planning, construction, supply, manufacturing, all of it together. It's got to be a partnership, and unfortunately, we seem to be lost in that morass.
We are, but I'd say Craig and Andrew have done a good job of getting with localities and getting in front of them. I will need them to go to Goochland, because now we're paying $30,000 in cash proffers, so we will need some help with that.
Well, Dana touched on it earlier, Spen mentioned it a little bit, and we're running out of time, so I'm going to shorten this part of our segment a little bit. But one of the biggest buzzwords and hottest buzzwords going on right now is AI. I know in my world, AI is powering dynamic apps, verifying income and assets, and handling common inquiries that come in on our websites. So even with all this tech, though, the human element does remain crucial, right? People are spending hundreds of thousands, and in Northern Virginia, millions of dollars. And so they don't always want to just be dealing with their screen and their computer. So I'm curious to hear if anyone here has anything to share about how AI is shaping your own business and any balance that you're striking with it.
I'll jump in real fast. When we talked about this before, I was like, wait, we're an industry very reluctant to change, as Dana said before, so we're not using any AI. And then I thought about it and went back and looked at our purchasing and estimating team and said, oh, wait, we're using it in purchasing and estimating. I went over to our design team and said, oh, wait, we're starting to do more Matterports, things that allow for visualization for our customers, because that's one thing we hear from our customers all the time. Gosh, I really wish I could see what my house will look like. I can tell you within the next 5 years, they're going to be able to strap on an Oculus headset or whatever it is. All the design selections they choose will be in their house, and before you build it, you will be able to walk through your house. I guarantee that in the next 5 years.
It's interesting. Does anyone have anything else quickly to add about AI?
Well, I just want to say I'm probably the least technologically savvy person in this entire room, and recently discovered things on the line and through the interwebs. But
Just discovered Google.
I have used now a really cool tool on AI where you can load whatever you want, so HOA docs or feed it anything you want, and it will generate a short podcast. Which is amazing because it's way more fun to listen to 20 minutes of a AI generated podcast than to read through all the HOA docs and rules. But it is super realistic and a fun way to get a summary, and it's now changed my life.
That's awesome.
I'm going to
Thank
try
you.
Google next.
Yes.
I'm not sure our company has figured out how to spell AI yet, so we're still working on that. But it's funny because it's on a personal note. I mentioned I'm millennial. I've leaned into technology my entire life, but like something with the AI thing, I'll admit, like I've probably seen one too many Terminator movies, but it scares me.
Yeah.
Like when you look at the power of what that tool represents, it can do a lot of cool things, but it's also got a lot of unknown things around it, right? And so. I don't know. It's weird because for the first time in my life, I found a technology where I'm like, I don't know if I need to lean into that one. But I recognize its benefits across the board. But like I said, we're still trying to figure out how to spell it first, and then we'll figure out how to use it. So,
I would just add, if you're working across a lot of jurisdictions, it's really helpful to look at the differences and the similarities. And so we recently, loaded some information in, and we were able to kind of see the differences within about 30 seconds between, the differences between localities. So again, I think AI is something that we're going to have to manage, but it's all about data entry, what's in the data sets, and how it can be, accumulated very quickly. So I'm not that afraid of it just yet.
I do have one short AI story that's probably worth noting.
Perfect.
And Charlie used it on a zoning case. We had an appeal in the city of Charlottesville, and we had submitted our request. Staff was not supportive of our request. And
Shocker.
Charlie used AI, loaded the comprehensive plan, the zoning ordinance, our submission, and asked AI to rule as the planning commission on whether or not they were in favor and why. And AI was in favor. So thank you, Terminator. And gave us some amazing reasons
Yeah.
and why we didn't go to the planning commission and say, we don't need y'all, AI's replaced you. There was a private conversation with a friendly person, and we shared it. And anyway, the real planning commission agreed with the AI planning commission, and we got it done.
That's awesome.
and robots
Thank
take
you.
over the world.
That's it. That's it. By the way, just so everyone heard that correctly, I think the youngest panelist, the very proud millennial, said is a little slower to adapt to AI, and then the oldest panelist said that he is not afraid of it. Just want to make sure everyone took note of that. So we are nearing the close of our conversation here. I hope you guys enjoyed it. We really try to make this more of an intimate style conversation, like the fireside chat without the fire. And we're going to close this with one of my favorite sections. And I will do this on most panels I'm on, and we call this section Paying It Forward. So we saved the best for last. So this is where we're going to get personal with advice that shaped all of us on the stage, and we're going to drop what we hope will help you in the industry and in your journey. Think of it as a gift today that you didn't know you needed. So I'll start with the best advice I've ever been given, and that is, there's never a right time, there's only right now. And so we'll start down, and we can start on either side. Whoever wants to start, please share with the audience what the best advice is that you've ever been given.
I'll start. There are two ways to do something. You could do it right, or you could do it over. That was from my dad.
Well, the one from my mom that I actually changed mine because I remember this one. I should have remembered earlier. It was God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. So
I like that a lot.
I have to remind myself of that one like every day. This is a piece of advice I wasn't given. I read it somewhere, and I can't cite where I read it because it was like on the interweb somewhere. But man, it has hit my soul like a gong. And that is, failure exists in the gap between expectations and execution. And man, anytime I've got anything, usually professionally, that's going wrong, just simply saying, hey, do we have an expectation problem or do we have an execution problem? Because that just helps distill down, how do you go attack it appropriately. The worst thing you can do, though, is use that advice in your marriage, because I've tried it on my wife. Thankfully, I'm still married, but it was a little bit after I said that, it was questionable, so.
My mentor told me early on that in any negotiation, one person wins on price and the other wins on terms. And that has helped me a lot over the years.
I love that. And we are going to now share with you advice that we want to leave with you. And for me, and I'm sorry, you guys probably heard me say it last year because it's the one thing that I say over and over and over again, is the road to success is a very lonely one. So take as many people as you can along with you for the ride. And then who wants to go next?
A fun saying I heard a long time ago in the context of over worrying about all the terrible things that could happen and getting stuck and not moving forward was don't worry about the mule going blind, sit in the saddle and hold the line.
I like it.
I have more, but they have cuss words in them. I'm going to tell that one anyway. So, again, something terrible happens, and you're kind of like wondering what's what. This old excavator looked at me. Everybody was upset over whatever happened. And he says, well, Heavy, you can't put the back in the horse.
There you go.
Gotta move on.
You're in good company, friend.
Yeah, Maya asked us, what's one thing we want to leave with everybody in the room, and for me, less comical, but I always remind myself, no matter what we've got going on, what struggles we've got going on with what we do as professionally, I remind myself that people need 3 basic things to survive: food, water, and shelter. We help provide one of those basic needs for people, and that's a noble profession, and I take a lot of pride in our place in the story of the growth of this country, and so I think all of us should be take a sense of pride in what we do, because no matter what we got going on, we play a key role in providing security and happiness for people. So there you go.
Thanks. Spen.
Frank and I should have talked before this, but mine is probably not going to be as a colored response. It's more of just don't worry about the things you can't control. Just focus your energy on the things you can. There's a lot of things in our industry that frustrate us and make it a challenge on a day-to-day, but those things we kind of got to let go and move on to the next thing.
Yep. Bring us on, Larry.
Yeah, I'm still on Frank's stuff.
I'm still on it too.
It's true. I guess my piece of advice, what I would add is be comfortable with being uncomfortable. Things are going to start changing even at a more rapid pace. So I've always pushed myself to be uncomfortable in different situations. I was a football guy and all that in high school, but I was also, a very, very good student. And so, at award ceremonies, I would get some awards for athletics. But then my buddies would look at me like, you won that from an academic side. So always put yourself, or try to continue to learn and continue to put yourself in uncomfortable situations. That'll be my advice, because we're constantly learning. So that would be mine.
Thanks, Larry. So I'm going to get everyone to stand up, and we're going to close out here. Okay, so from real talk to bold ideas, this panel brought us the heat today. Let's give them a big round of applause for sharing their insight and energy. Thank you so much. And to all of you, thanks for showing up and being a part of our conversation. I know your time is valuable, and I'm grateful you spent it here with us this morning. The momentum's just getting started, so change into your pool gear, hit the Women Building Virginia happy hour poolside, and have a drink on my good friend Alicia and me. Your ticket was in your registration packet, and most importantly, show out tonight for the Housing Excellence Awards, and let's keep building what's next. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maya.
Good job. This is a lot of fun.
Well done.